Hey guys, this is Vadim with Max Tech, and right here in front of me, I have the long-awaited Galaxy Tab S7. You guys have been waiting for this video for a while. I have the 2020 iPad Pro, and we're gonna be comparing these two with basically everything: the displays, the 120 Hertz, the keyboards, everything you can imagine we're gonna be comparing in this video. And as you can see, I have the Magic Keyboard case right here, and we actually did grab the book cover keyboard for the Tab S7, but I'm gonna set this aside because we're gonna be comparing that later on in this video. So without further ado, let's do our signature unboxing. All right, there we go, and I've gotta say, this actually looks quite a bit different compared to last year's Tab S6, especially this here. There used to be like a little groove on the back of the Tab S6, but now it's flat with this nice little, I don't know if it's a glass or plastic piece for that S Pen, which actually comes included, so that's really nice. So let's go ahead and compare the design between these two, but first of all, I want to talk about the chargers. The Tab S7 comes with the 15-watt charger, which is interestingly USB-A, compared to the iPad Pro comes with a USB-C charger, and it's 18 watts, so 18 for the iPad Pro versus 15, so the iPad is going to be charging faster, but the Tab S7 does support 45-watt fast charging, but you have to buy that separately. And as far as the battery sizes that are built into these tablets themselves, we have 7600 for the iPad Pro and 8000 for the Samsung, so it's just a little bit more. Now let's go ahead and get into the design differences between these two. Now first of all, before I start comparing them, I do want to mention the weight difference. The iPad Pro weighs 1.04 pounds compared to 1.1 pounds for the Tab S7. Now I'm gonna take this S Pen, I'm gonna put it aside. We're gonna be comparing the latency and different things a little bit later in this video. But for now, I do wanna look at this new design for the Tab S7, which, I mean, obviously, it's just like the iPad Pro. The main difference I'm seeing is that these sides are now kind of glossy. They're brushed, like a brushed metal look, compared to pretty matte for the iPad Pro, which wraps all the way around to the back. Now I want to give props to Samsung for copying Apple's design because this really does feel more modern, more premium. I really like this metal feel, and it's much better than the old Tab S6's chamfered edges. Now as far as the camera bumps, I've got to say that I do like the one on the iPad Pro better. It just looks better overall with the design of the iPad Pro, but this does go in line with that charger, so it's not that bad. We have a wide camera on both and ultra wide along with the flash, but the iPad Pro does have the LiDAR scanner, which we're gonna get into later on in this video. Now on the iPad Pro, the Apple Pencil charger is actually right here on the side. It charges wirelessly, so just magnetically connects just like that. And finishing off with the exterior differences, we have quad speakers on the top and bottom on each of these. They both have USB Type-C, and the Samsung has its kind of smart connector right here on the side compared to on the back for the iPad Pro. Now I've flipped them over to the front, and one thing I'm immediately noticing is that the iPad Pro is actually a little bit thinner. Just looking from the side, the Tab S7 is definitely sticking out, so it's a little bit thicker than the iPad Pro. Getting into the displays themselves, I'm seeing some differences right away, but before we do that, let's compare Face ID on the iPad Pro compared to fingerprint recognition on the Tab S7. So the most interesting thing is that we're getting this sensor on the side this time instead of in display like we had on the Tab S6. Let's start scanning right here on the side, and I guess it makes it more difficult because it's like a thin power button, so you kind of have to put your finger everywhere to get a full scan. So now it wants me to go kind of all the way around. So let's first test out how Face ID works on the iPad Pro. You can simply tap and just swipe to open. It happens instantly, and what I really like is that you can even turn it upside down, and it works upside down too, or sideways. So I really like that you have Face ID on the iPad Pro. Now let's test out the Tab S7. Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow, yeah, that's really quick. Let me try a different finger, my thumb. Instantly, wow. So based on this, I'm definitely saying that the Tab S7 is faster to log in because you just have a simple touch like that. But the downside is that if you want to just tap the display and get going, you can't really do that on the Tab. You still have to put your finger up there to unlock. Whereas with Face ID, you just tap the screen and it scans your face and you're good to go. Now back to the displays, the first thing that sticks out to me is the aspect ratio difference. 16:10 for the Samsung, and the iPad Pro has a little bit of a weird aspect ratio, but you guys will see it on your screen. Now these are both the 11-inch display models. The Tab actually has a 12.4-inch model, that's the plus size, and the iPad Pro has 12.9. So between these two, you definitely see that both of them have rounded corners, so that looks really nice and modern. But one difference I'm instantly noticing is that the bezels on the iPad have deeper blacks. It seems like the display on the Tab is more reflective, so let's go ahead and test out the reflectivity. I can definitely notice that the Tab is more reflective than the iPad Pro. As far as the display quality itself, the Samsung does have more resolution. I believe it has 274 pixels per inch compared to 265 for the iPad Pro. And with that, let's get into the brightness comparison of the display. So you guys are seeing the brightness difference from the above camera. So the iPad Pro should be looking a little bit brighter, but let's go ahead and test the off-axis shift. Let me know which one does a better job at brightness shift. The last display difference I want to mention is the display quality in terms of the technology. Now the Tab S7, this year it actually ditches the AMOLED display that it has had for years. So it has a LCD display just like the iPad Pro, but the benefit is that we can still choose HDR. Within YouTube, we could actually go up to 1440p compared to only 1080p on the iPad Pro. All right, even though the Samsung has 1440p and it has HDR enabled, it actually looks like the iPad Pro looks better in general in terms of the colors, in terms of the brightness, just everything looks like a better image overall. Max also took a peek and he actually thought that the iPad was the Samsung at first because he expected it to look better, and then he realized that they were switched. So it's very surprising that the iPad Pro is beating out the Samsung even though it doesn't get those better settings. So there are three reasons for that. The first one is that the iPad Pro is brighter. The second is that the display tech could actually be better on the iPad Pro and it looks better overall even though it's less resolution for that video. And the third reason is that the display coatings on the iPad Pro are better, so there's less reflectivity compared to the more reflective Samsung display that looks more gray compared to the deep black of the iPad Pro. Now the reason Samsung ditched the AMOLED display was for the 120Hz technology. As you guys can see right here, I have adaptive mode on, which allows it to transition between 120Hz and 60Hz, but the iPad Pro has had ProMotion technology for a very long time. It stays at 120Hz almost all the time, but when you're watching something like a YouTube video, like our YouTube videos, which are filmed at 24Hz or 24 FPS, the display goes down to 24Hz and it matches it, so it saves battery life. So we just set our top camera to record at 120 FPS, so you should be seeing a slow motion comparison between both of these tablets at 120 FPS or 120 Hz. Let me know which one looks better or more smooth. And based on what I'm seeing, the Samsung looks really smooth. Finally, they've added 120 Hz. Now, another benefit to having a display that runs at 120 Hz is that the pencils, the S Pen and the Apple Pencil, they have less latency. So on the iPad Pro, it's recently went down to 9 milliseconds, and same with the Samsung, it's also 9 milliseconds. So let me know which one looks better in this slow motion comparison. And with that, let's finally get into our speaker comparison. These both have quad speakers, so make sure you put on your best set of headphones or earphones to listen to the quality. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. To myself personally, I think that the Samsung was a little bit louder with louder highs, but I think the mids and the bass were pretty similar on both. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the camera comparison. So the front-facing cams on both of these, we have 7 megapixels on the iPad Pro and we have 8 for the Tab S7. And one thing that's very interesting is that the Tab has its camera right here on the side, and that's because it's meant for using it with a keyboard case, which we're gonna put on in just a minute here, but the iPad Pro has it on the top. So let me know which one of these selfies looks better to you. Now, while the Samsung doesn't have the same true depth Face ID sensors as the iPad Pro, you still get live focus selfies, which is nice. Now, as far as the cameras on the back, the iPad Pro has a 12 megapixel wide camera compared to 13 megapixels on the Samsung Tab S7, but for the ultra wide, the Samsung only gets a 5 megapixel ultra wide lens compared to 8 for the iPad Pro. So let me know which set of images looks better down in the comment section below. As far as video recording, the iPad Pro is definitely the best choice because it can shoot 4K 60 with either the ultra wide or the wide lens, and the Samsung can only shoot 4K 30 with either of them. And of course, the iPad Pro also gets the added LiDAR scanner, which can be used for augmented reality apps, and Apple should be revealing more features with LiDAR at next month's event. So now let's finally jump into the performance comparison. Now, both of these models have 6 gigabytes of RAM, but with the Samsung, you can actually get 8 if you upgrade the storage. The iPad Pro comes with the A12Z chip compared to the Snapdragon 865 Plus on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. So let's go ahead and run the CPU benchmark. All right, so we got our scores back, and wow, this is insane. So the iPad Pro actually has 15% more single core performance compared to the Tab S7, but in the multi-core, we're getting over 50% more performance. And with that, let's go ahead and test the graphics using GFX Bench. We've got Metal on the iPad Pro, and we have actually OpenGL and Vulkan, these two tests on the Samsung. So let's get started. All right, so we have our results back, and wow, this is impressive. The iPad Pro is getting 57 FPS compared to 22 and 23 on the Tab S7, so we're definitely getting a lot more graphics power. This would be very interesting to see in terms of gaming, like 120 FPS games. So if you want to see a video like that, definitely click the subscribe button down below and we'll make that video. Now let's finally get into the keyboard comparison. We have our Magic keyboard case right here for the iPad Pro, so let's put it on just like that. We have this nice little hinge that I love. And this year with the Tab S7, instead of having a stick-on keyboard case like they did for the Tab S6 and other years, they actually have a magnet, so should be able to just put it on just like that. That's really nice because they have this flap for the S Pen, so it keeps it nice and secure. And the real nice benefit with this keyboard is that it has a detachable keyboard portion, so you literally just line it up like this. Now it's on, we have the keyboard, and it actually has a kickstand in the back, and you can adjust the angle of the kickstand. It feels pretty nice. And on the Magic keyboard case for the iPad Pro, you have the adjustable weird floating design, which I really like. It's really nice and modern. So with the iPad Pro, you can't really detach the keyboard case like you can with the Samsung, but you can just simply lift the iPad Pro and use it with your Apple Pencil however you want to and just place it back. That's a nice benefit. And for this, you can take off the keyboard case, put it aside, and just watch a movie just like that. Now, comparing the keys themselves, I really like the Magic keyboard keys. They actually feel really good, even like a MacBook, or even better than a MacBook. And going over to the Tab S7's keyboard, wow, this actually does feel really nice. I like the feedback on this Tab S7's keyboard case. But one of the biggest advantages for the Magic keyboard case is that you get an extra USB Type-C port right here for power, so you can plug it into the wall and plug in something like a storage device into the iPad Pro itself. Now, as far as the trackpads, it seems like both of these have 3-finger swipe gesture support, so you can swipe with 3 fingers side to side, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem very responsive on the Tab. It's a little bit slow compared to the iPad Pro. Wow, look at that. It's so quick to use these gestures, and you can swipe up for home, and it looks like I think you can do the same thing here, or at least go to the app switcher. The Samsung does have a diving board traditional trackpad, so it's really difficult to click at the top. But on the Magic keyboard case, they went with a new floating design, so no matter where you click, you get an even clicking feel, which I'd say is really, really nice, and I love that about the Magic keyboard case. Another benefit for the Magic keyboard case is that you do get backlit keys, which it seems like you do not get on the Tab S7's keyboard case. Now, one really nice feature that really brings this Tab S7 alive is the DeX mode. DeX basically gives you a more traditional PC type interface. So just like Windows, right here, you have your apps. As you can see, we have a file explorer right here. You can open up Google in a separate window and just have a nice PC interface. One great decision that Samsung made was that they put the webcam on the side, so when you're web conferencing or using Zoom, it's nice and center compared to the iPad Pro. When you're looking at the display, it actually looks really weird because the camera is right over here. It definitely has this weird feeling when you're conferencing with somebody. Let's quickly compare the quality of the webcams and the microphones, and you guys let me know which one's better down below. This is the video and audio quality of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. This is the video and audio quality of the 2020 iPad Pro. Now, as far as the price of these keyboards, the Magic Keyboard case is $300 compared to $200 for the Tab S7's keyboard case. Now, the iPad Pro does have a couple of other options. We have the Logitech Folio Touch. This one is $170. And we also have Apple's Smart Keyboard Folio. This one is $179. So you do have a couple of other great options, but I'd say that the keyboard on the Tab S7 is definitely better than either of these budget options for the iPad Pro. Now, before we get into our final conclusion, I do want to mention the specs and the prices. Both of these come with 128 gigs of storage, but the Samsung does get a micro SD card slot with up to an extra 1 terabyte of storage, so that's really nice. The Samsung is $650 at the base price compared to $800 for the 11-inch iPad Pro. But with the Tab S7, you do get the S Pen for free. It's thrown in there compared to $130 extra for the iPad Pro. Now, if you get everything, if you get the Magic Keyboard case and if you get the keyboard for the Tab S7, it's actually $1,230 for the iPad Pro and $850 for the Tab S7. So you're saving $380 for the full package. And even though the iPad Pro has more performance and has other great features like the display compared to the Tab S7, you really can't beat the value of this, getting the whole package for $850 and of course getting the better speakers as well. Now, if you're a power user, you do get a couple of advantages with the Tab S7. First of all, you have an option for 5G, which you can't get on the iPad Pro. And you also have that DeX, which is really nice for using with the keyboard and the trackpad. And the benefit is that if you want 1 terabyte of storage, you have to pay $500 to get that on the iPad Pro, or you can simply get a 1 terabyte micro SD card for the Tab S7 for around $200, so you save some money there. And the benefit of having a micro SD card is that next year when you upgrade again, you can take that out and put it into your next tablet, compared to the iPad Pro where that 1 terabyte is stuck on the inside. And if you also deal with video editing or video footage, you can take out that SD card, put it into your drone, for example, record some video, then pop it back in and edit straight from that card, which you can't do with the iPad Pro. So with all of that said, let's finally answer the original question: which one of these tablets is better in 2020? Well, I'd say that the Tab S6 definitely has more bang for the buck. You're getting a lot more value, especially if you want the full package. And of course, you're now getting the 120 Hz, which is really, really nice. And the S Pen finally feels a lot better with the lowered latency of 9 milliseconds, matching the iPad Pro. Now, on the other hand, with the iPad Pro, you're getting consistent software updates from Apple, and they're adding a lot of features every year. Not only that, but they hold their value very, very well compared to other tablets like Samsung tablets. On top of that, you're getting the massive iOS App Store with the iPad Pro, and those apps and those games are specifically designed for the iPad Pro compared to the Google Play Store, where you do have a lot of apps and games, but a lot of them are not optimized specifically for this hardware, so the apps definitely run better on the iPad Pro. So based on all of that, we think that if you can afford to spend the extra money for the iPad Pro, you definitely should, because you're going to be getting a lot more value in the long term. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this very long and very detailed comparison video, and if you did, tap the like button below and click the circle above to subscribe, because we're going to have a gaming comparison video between these two going up very soon. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.